Sometimes a fighter comes along who breaks all of the rules, possessing the talent and guts to get away with things that just shouldn't work. Luis Tavares is a fascinating example of this. As the former heavyweight and super heavyweight kickboxing champion, dominates with old school techniques that were utilized by some of the world's greatest boxers. Because there are obviously more attacks possible in kickboxing, he can use these classic boxing tactics in a variety of interesting and different ways. Since Tavares appears to really appreciate and heavily rely on boxing anyways, this seems like the perfect opportunity to explore how some of the tactics used by the world's greatest boxers can still work in an entirely different sport where head movement and dynamic footwork is 100 times more dangerous. The fact that Tavares can get away with these techniques, let alone win with them, is incredibly impressive and well worth examining. Some of these tactics are pretty advanced, so feel free to check out my videos on the boxers who use them afterwards. Let's start with one of the coolest examples. Like Muhammad Ali, Tavares will use pulls and slips as he shifts backwards. Sometimes several times, always keeping his head just out of reach. This is even more dangerous in kickboxing, since Tavares' legs are very vulnerable to kicks during these movements. But being able to rely on these crazy tactics if necessary means that he can risk some of his more dangerous combinations. If he gets put in a bad position with his guard down, he can always fall back on this head movement. Besides, Tavares is usually more controlled with his pulls, meaning that a pull and shift can work well to set up attacks from new angles. Honestly, pulls are probably the safest head movement in kickboxing. What is absolutely insane is the way that Tavares rolls while shifting back like the great James Toney. He can shoulder roll or shoulder block from either stance. Whether it's a roll or a block depends on the positioning, but either way, Tavares remains safely tucked away behind his lead shoulder. This allows him to roll as he steps back into a new stance. He likes to pair this with the lead hook as well, which is a great idea because the roll works very well with the dynamics of the punch. Speaking of, Tavares will straight up shift back mid-combination like Mike Tyson. This loads more power into lead hand strikes as he opens up pathways for his new power side. But I don't want to give the impression that Tavares is always on the back foot. He can be incredibly aggressive. So much so that again like Tyson, he'll shuffle far forward. So far forward he'll move past his opponent to transfer both into southpaw. This can be a huge advantage when one competitor is not used to that stance and the other is. So that's two advanced shifting techniques with several variations already. But Tavares really shines when it comes to lateral movement. A slight adjustment to the opponent's open side lets him target their liver, a favorite of the legendary Julio Cesar Chavez. But once again, he'll take it even further. Like Roy Jones Jr., Tavares will move so far inside that he'll lateral shift into southpaw, with his left side now further away from his opponent. This is a great position to quickly escape off angle, but has a lot of offensive uses as well. Deep inside angles turn what was the lead side into the power side, while also bringing what was the rear hand closer, often into a position to sneak around the opponent's shoulder. Tavares will go the other way as well, moving to the outside like Lomachenko. This forces the opponent to turn to catch up, thus gaining extra time to land shots. Like numerous noteworthy boxers, Tavares will also keep his hands low. Low hands used to be favored in boxing in order to protect the body, while head movement was used to protect the head. In kickboxing, where the high guard is undisputed king, Tavares often keeps his hand mid to low for similar reasons, but there are additional benefits involving kicks. For one, he can double block hard body kicks and immediately return a counter. More importantly, he can easily catch kicks by blocking with one arm and scooping with the other. Unbalancing competitors like this gives him the time to adjust angles. And it doesn't hurt his uppercuts either, an underutilized move in kickboxing that he's particularly fond of. Lastly, Tavares likes to escape the ropes and turn the situation around on his opponent by weaving or ducking out as he shuffles away, much like Ricardo Lopez. If you're new to this, I get how this might all seem a little overwhelming, and it certainly is to most of Tavares' competitors. But honestly, every one of these tactics comes down to two basic principles. First, Tavares gets off the opponent's center line so that he can attack off angle before the opponent can adjust. And second, he'll open up or close off lines of attack by switching stances. It's a high-risk, high-reward method of fighting that's mesmerizing to watch. Tavares will be participating in Glory's 4-man heavyweight tournament at Glory 85, taking place on April 29th. If he wins, he gets the right to fight to become interim champion. If you like this kind of style, I'd recommend checking out my video on Van Soest, as she pulls off equally crazy things in a different way. If you'd like to improve your own game, you could check out my books on footwork, power, and defense. From the Modern Martial Artist, this has been David Christian, wishing you happy training.